Let me know when. Let me know when. All right. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the third annual Innovation and Business Leadership Lecture here at the University of the Virgin Islands. I am thrilled that you chose to join us this evening, and I know it's going to be an inspirational night. So I hope you also enjoyed the reception sponsored by the RT Park and 13D. And I hope you had time to fellowship and just talk and get to know one another. So now it is time for our business leadership lecture. My name is Pamela Molinar-Worsi. I'm the Vice President of Student Success and Innovation here at the University of the Virgin Islands. And I just want to welcome you and bring up my boss, Madam President, Dr. Safia George.
Good evening, everyone. Hopefully you're all as excited as I am to hear from our speaker. I won't be formally introducing him, but I get the pleasure of first introducing Mr. Kirill Sokolov, who many of you know is an amazing philanthropist in our community. We're so grateful. We're in this amazing innovation center because of his contributions. He's also the founder and CEO of 13D Strategy, has an amazing team who's put together this event in partnership, of course, with those from my office. So I'm very grateful to the collaborative work that has gone to put this together. Now, I had the pleasure of meeting Pablos. I won't say much about his background, but I assure you that you are in for a treat. A unique mind, I would say, a level of brilliance that's refreshing and engaging. My neurons were jumping, and I assure you that yours will be too. So I won't be long, but I'd love to invite up Mr. Sokolov to come and give some remarks. So welcome, everyone.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. The territories that I love so much. I first came here in 2009, and I met Dr. Hall. We became very close. We shared a vision of entrepreneurialism and innovation. So it's been a great joy to be able to make these contributions to help the territories and to help the universities. And I love the people here. I love the territories. Great honor to be able to help. I'm going to introduce my colleague, Woody Prussell. Been with me on this journey at 13D for 35 years, 38 years. And I charged him in the early 1990s thank you, to follow disruption. And I don't think he's missed a single one. You know, he's an encyclopedia. I mean, the amount of information he has on 30 different themes is just astounding. He connects them all. He's actually a genius. And Woody, please, over to you.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. Can you hear me? Nope. Needs to go. Okay. I think it's kicking in now. Okay, great. Kira wanted me to just say a few words about how we approach our technology research. We started following disruptive technologies in 1995 in earnest. We call our technology theme creative destruction. It's based on the Austrian economist Joseph Schumpeter's economic theory that gales of creative destruction will come in and sweep out old industries with new technologies. It's an essential fact of capitalism. It's a process of industrial mutation. And since 2006, we've framed much of our research within the context of Ray Kurzweil's law of accelerating returns. Most people will look backwards and then extrapolate forwards in a linear fashion for technology progress, but in actuality, technology progress is accelerating at an exponential rate. We believe that there are several technology platforms that are driving innovation and will continue to do so. They're all converging with each other. This includes genomics and biotech, clean energy, next generation wireless networks, quantum information systems, and automation, which includes artificial intelligence and machine learning, robotics. And as these technologies converge, it's going to cause a step change in the global economy and will help foster new business models. They hold promise to help solve global grand challenges like climate change. And it's also fueling this technology arms race between the US and China, but really between many countries and many companies. Modern disruptions are rooted in convergence of technologies. This is a photograph of Carl Benz's first vehicle that he invented in the late 1800s. It's a convergence of bicycle parts and a combustion engine. And it only had 2/3 of 1 horsepower and only sold a few units. But what we found over history is that when a new technology is 10 times better than the prior version, it'll see rapid adoption. And so 20 years later, when Henry Ford introduced the Model T, it had 20 horsepower, and he sold 15 million units. And there's I think I have a clicker here, or let's see. Oh, no laser pointer, at least. Anyway, so in the bottom left-hand corner, you'll see a picture that's of Fifth Avenue in 1900, and the red circle there is one car in a sea of horse and buggies. But by 1913, it had flipped. Only one horse and buggy in a sea of cars. And so we've actually seen this pattern happen with the 10x improvement in multiple disruptions, whether it's transatlantic travel or cameras or TV screens. So one case study to give you a flavor for how we look at things, we're very much contrarian thinkers. And I remember the day that Carol walked into my office in 1995. He had a cover story of Business Week magazine, and it was proclaiming the biotech industry was dead. And so we took this as a contrary signal, and we did an in-depth report. We published it March 20th, and the benchmark biotech index bottomed on March 24th. And it's gone up 8,000% since then, about over 4 times what the S&P has done. And the theme is still going strong. Artificial intelligence is converging with biotech, really supercharging innovation. But there's actually 3 important technology shifts going on simultaneously. DNA, the cost to sequence DNA, the human genome, is falling at 5 times faster than when Moore's law would dictate. So now it costs about $200 a genome to sequence. There's a race going on to drive it down to 100, but it's not going to stop there. It's going to go to cents on the dollar. And as the costs come down, scientists can do more and more studies and understand biology better. The second shift is the advent of artificial intelligence and machine learning, the ability to detect new patterns in data sets that were not possible before. And then the third shift is the automation and collection and manipulation of data in the laboratory. And so this new field of computational biology is going to disrupt many industries, not only pharmaceuticals, but food, agriculture, and industrial processes. An example of where artificial intelligence is converging with biology to really revolutionize healthcare is AlphaFold 2. This is an algorithm developed by DeepMind a couple years ago, and it solved a 50-year grand challenge in biology, which is to estimate how proteins fold. Proteins are linear chains of amino acids, and they can, proteins account for every function in the human body, but it's very estimate how they will fold. And so traditional techniques have taken months or years to estimate and cost hundreds of thousands of dollars, but this algorithm, AlphaFold 2, was able to do it for in hours or days and at a fraction of the cost. And in fact, since this algorithm was released, DeepMind came out with a free database for the scientific community of over 200 million proteins, estimating how they fold, essentially all known proteins to man. And then last year, they introduced AlphaFold 3, and this not only looks at proteins, but all of life's molecules, and estimating how they interact with each other. And the objective here is to cut in half the time it takes to develop a new drug and to also reduce costs by about 50%. Biotech is not the only theme we have done a lot of research on. In 1999, Carol and I took a trip to Finland, and we saw the future of telecommunications. The Finns had over 50% wireless penetration then. That was about double what it was in the US. And the Finns were doing things with their smartphones that would not show up in other countries for years to come, such as hailing taxi cabs and all that. And the picture on the left there is the Nokia 9000 communicator. It was basically a pocket computer. This is 1999, and it was a predecessor to the modern-day smartphone. And it became clear to us then that most of the world, particularly in developing countries, people would access the internet through their phone, and that the phone would become the remote control of your life. We probably have looked at over 120 different disruptions in the last 30 years, ranging from broadband stocks in 1997, the early versions of cloud computing in the early 2000s, renewable energy technologies. The cost of solar has come down 250-fold since 1975. Battery costs have dropped 80% in the last 10 years. And really prominent today is generative AI. Artificial intelligence, as I mentioned, is really underpinning a lot of this innovation. And what's driving this innovation on generative AI is these LLMs, large language models. They're doubling complexity every few months, and the cost to train them are falling at about 70 to 85% per year. And so the DeepSeek innovation that you may have read about in recent weeks is really collapsing the cost of innovation by an order of magnitude. And it's very likely that this would drive adoption of artificial intelligence in the long term. And fundamentally, we're transitioning from this era of text input to text output to an era of text input to action. And these AI agents are starting to do more and more tasks. And in fact, the duration of the length of the task that they can do is doubling every 7 months now. Right now, the AI agents can handle a task for about an hour. And they're on a progression rate to, by 2026-27, handle tasks of 8 hours in length, basically a full standard shift. And if it keeps that pace by 2030, they'll be able to handle month-long tasks. So to stay on the cutting edge of these technologies, we're involved in various technology communities, attend conferences. We have a circle of experts that we tap into to identify these trends and connect the dots. And that's actually how I first met Pablos. I heard him speak at a Singularity University conference a few years ago. Pablos is a technology futurist. He's an inventor with over 70 patents. He's one of the most world-renowned hackers, and he is he has a unique ability to solve problems with new technologies. His TED Talks, speeches, and interviews have over 30 million views. And Pablos is not just talking about the future, he's actually building it. So after working with Jeff Bezos to start Blue Origin to build spaceships, he worked with Nathan Marvode and Bill Gates to invent new technologies. And today, Pablos is running Deep Future, investing in startups that are implementing science fiction to solve the biggest problems in the world. Pablos, we're honored to have you, and thank you very much.
As you guys will see, what I'm really trying to do is just keep Carell and Woodley busy by creating more disruptions. So we're going to talk a little bit about how that works, what that's like. Give this a second, see if it syncs up. Here we go. And is it working? You know, we'll figure it out. We got enough computer geniuses in the room. All right. Okay, hold on. Let me try and do it this. See what this says. Yeah, I just didn't notice the thing. Here, I'll try again. All right. We tested all this before. It totally works. Okay. I don't know about that part of it, though. It's coming. All right. Well, I'm totally happy to mirror my display. I just don't think it knows there is one. Okay, we're going to skip this thing and go direct. See if that helps. How's that? 2 HDMI. Oh, you guys, this is so anticlimactic. It's actually really exciting for me to, hold on, we're going to just get to the bottom of this. Okay, so laptop, HDMI, you tried that, it's not working. And am I doing something wrong? It's just not even doing. Here it can go. I hope she can save me. This will be great. This is great. See, I don't think it's seeing the external display, so something's wrong with it's not seeing an external monitor. Yeah, click on that. Oh, black magic. Here we go. Go extended. Try it. God damn. Wow. There are places in the world where you can get hired just because you saved me. Okay. All right. Wow. That's the first. I love it. Okay, cool. So I'll try and see if this thing will work too. So what I want to do is just give you guys a sense of how I see the world, because I get to go a lot of places most of you don't get to go. And I get to see a lot of these new technologies at the very beginning. And I get to, in some cases help make them go somewhere. And where my view of the world is very optimistic, because every day I'm seeing these incredible breakthroughs. And I want to just give you a sense of how I think about it. You can ignore me. You might think I'm full of shit, which is also fine. But let's just, give you a different perspective to work with. So, yeah, years ago, as Woodley said, I started a company called Blue Origin to build spaceships. And what people think this is just billionaires with their big swinging rockets out there trying to, make a mess in the world. But really what's going on here is a very long-term vision. So in the kind of the best case scenario, Earth is just going to melt into the sun. This whole thing will be over, and that would be kind of sad. So you might want, a plan B, if not a planet B. And to do that would probably take thousands of years. And so what I learned here is that, in cases like this, Jeff makes enough money off of Amazon. That wasn't really the goal. The goal is to figure out, how do you start laying the groundwork for humans to be thriving in space? And I know that sounds insane, but in some sense, it's inevitable. And so a project like that would still start with one small step. So Blue Origin is, and by extension, SpaceX, these private space launch companies, what they're really trying to do is make it possible for humans to have a future even beyond what we could currently imagine. Maybe you would turn Earth into like a wildlife refuge and come visit once in a while, which would be pretty cool. But the thing I really learned from that is that, if you can break out of this cycle of only being able to see what's going on this week, what's going on last week, and think on longer time horizons, it can be super powerful and encouraging. And, I was able to work on a project that has a 1,000-year horizon. And that really changed me, because I got to learn a little bit about, if you are freaking out about like whatever's on the news right now, try and remember, what were you freaking out about last year? Probably can't even remember, right? And next year you'll definitely be freaking out about something different. So if that doesn't work, try 10 years. On a 10-year horizon, almost nothing is worse now. On a 100-year horizon, it's provable that nothing is worse now. Like, everything is better. And there's really no reason to believe that won't be true going forward. So anyway, start by finding yourself here on this chart. This is the history of humans on Earth. Not very many. About 100,000 years ago, We get the first Homo sapiens, and then it's just hundreds, thousands, eventually a million or so. And not until the last 200 years do we hit this hockey stick growth curve and go from millions to billions almost overnight. And this is the reason everything in the world seems crazy. We've never done this before, right? We made 8 billion people, and now we got to figure out how do we take care of them. And so if you look at what happened along the way, you just couldn't have people. We couldn't feed them all. We couldn't give them jobs. We couldn't give them homes. We couldn't solve these diseases that were killing them off. That's why those numbers were low. And then what happened is we started inventing solutions to those problems. And we invented new technologies, and we brought them into the world. And then we got a little better and better and better at that. And the next thing you know, we solved enough of those problems, partially, if not wholly, and this happened. And that's why you and I exist, because humans invented new technologies, brought them into the world to solve these problems that kept us from thriving. Now, the job's not done. If there's one thing all these extra humans are good for, it's making more problems. So our job is going to be to figure out, can we keep this going? Can we invent on this scale? Can we solve problems faster? Can we spread those solutions around the world faster? Can we take care of all the people that we made? So we are all made of stars. And this is not just song lyrics, it's literally true. Like, we are all made of this star, our sun. Everything all the energy in the world came from that star. Not just solar power, but also the coal and the oil and the gas and the ground. Even the uranium came from other stars, but whatever, it's still from stars. So all energy. And when you look around the world and you add up how much energy does each individual person get, the global average is the same as like one toaster. So if you super glue the button down on a toaster and run it for 24 hours a day, it consumes about as much energy as all of your heating, cooling, travel, food combined, right? Now, where I come from, we get 8 bonus toasters. Now, that is pretty awesome. I don't know what's going on in the Virgin Islands, but, this is the American average. I'm probably in the 20, 30 toaster range. I don't really know. It's a lot. But to get those averages, 3 billion people live on less than one toaster. And that's not enough, right? Because this energy maps to almost every other problem. It maps to clean water, sanitation. It maps to construction and food. It maps to health. It maps to almost every other problem you want to solve. If you don't solve energy first, you don't really have a hope of solving those other things. And when you look around the world at what's happened, think about it this way. Have you ever seen a gas company advertise to get you to buy more gas? It's the biggest industry in the world, and they don't have to advertise their product. Why is that? Well, demand is essentially unlimited, right? We'll buy all the gas they can make, and it's not enough. And then when you see people working in, say, renewable energy, trying to sell windmills or solar plants or whatever, they'll show you a demand curve that adds like a few % a year. All of those are lies. We are lying to ourselves. The real demand for energy on planet Earth is 10 toasters. Real demand is, how do you give every human on Earth as much energy as we give an American, right? If you could do that, now we're talking. And it sounds insane to try and do 10x global energy production, but we have done it before. In the last century, we 10x global energy production. Now, we did that by burning more coal and oil and gas, and we probably, hopefully, learned our lesson. Maybe don't 10x those things again. We got these little slivers at the top, right? So it is possible. Solar panels are amazing, and this is one of the real big breakthroughs that we have had in energy in our lifetime, and we've scaled that up, and it's been impressive. But they suffer from two big problems: clouds and nighttime. Yeah, the relentless onslaught of night is screwing with our solar panels. We don't know what to do about it. And just to beat you over the head, I'll use Germany as an example, because Germany, when I was a kid, they were like the smartest engineers in the world. So let's see how they're doing now. This orange line is the installed solar capacity in Germany, and they're very proud of this. They brag about it all the time. It's in the news all the time. They're constantly, Germany just went crazy building solar. But fun fact, in Germany, in the winter, the sun don't shine. And so let's see how much energy they're getting. So this blue line shows how much energy they actually get from what they paid for. So in the summer, they're getting almost 20%. In the winter, down to 2 or 3%. And again, nobody talks about this number. You never see this in the press. We are lying to ourselves. We're pretending this is a solution. It doesn't matter how many solar panels you deploy in Germany, they do not work in the winter at night, okay? So we have been sort of fantasizing about battery storage. There's no battery storage that stores energy from summer to winter, right? That's not a thing. We don't even have ideas for that. You know, the biggest battery storage in the program, like in the entire world, is in China. It's probably about enough energy to power the Virgin Islands, like through the night. That's it. That's it. I'm not exaggerating. That's it. Not enough. So we don't have a solution here for solar. But if you take the solar farm and you put it up in space, it'll actually get sun 24 hours a day. It looks like nighttime in space because we have a bad angle on it. It's actually noon in space all the time. And so a solar panel in space will get 8 times as much energy, and then you can beam it down to Earth using radio waves. And I know this sounds crazy, sounds like science fiction, and it was. But we have all the technology to do this now. I think the first commercial array will go up before 2030. We can put solar farms in space. We can beam energy to this island. This island's running on gas right now, right? We can beam energy to the middle of Africa, to the poles, wherever you want it. Just send a beam, right? It's not even that hard. We have all the technology for that. That's one way we could 10x global energy production. All the metals mined in the world last year. Now, these pale compared to this one. That's iron, which we mine to make steel. It's a lot of metal every year. That's how much mining is going on this planet. But take a look at this little pile, uranium. There's enough energy in this one little pile to power the entire planet. Now, we're not using it for that. Mostly use it to make bombs. But that's what's possible. And if you had a soup can full of uranium, it would contain enough energy to power you, your whole family, for the rest of your lives. Like, this is so energy dense. And by extension, doesn't make a lot of waste. You get 1 can of waste in your whole lifetime. But it's radioactive and dangerous and messy, and we don't know what to do with the waste. We've been kind of saving it for our grandkids. Maybe they'll, make CrossFit gyms out of it or something. Take a look at this. It's a new type of nuclear reactor. It's this big around. It'll fit through a manhole. And it gets buried a mile deep in a borehole. Turns out one thing humans got real good at is drilling holes. So we can drill a hole, We put a nuclear reactor at the bottom of the hole, and now it's got 10 billion tons of rock between the reactor and anyone's backyard. It's unquestionably safe. Nothing can go wrong down there, but if it did, there'd be no radioactivity at the surface. It's a totally safe nuclear reactor. You could put it under a building or like a skyscraper or a data center or an island and provide power. You could do it anywhere. And if you need more power, you just drill more holes. Easy. Need a lot more power? Drill a lot more holes. Boom. Nuclear reactors like this can be so economical and so safe, but we sort of regulated them into oblivion. Humans are these sort of story-powered creatures, right? When we get a story in our head, it controls us, our decisions. When we were kids, the world conflated nuclear reactors with nuclear bombs. We outlawed the wrong one and built the other one. That's the world we're living in. We got on the wrong fork in history. That's the fork we're on right now. And we still aren't being honest with ourselves, and we haven't fixed that. We have these mushroom cloud stories in our head. Nobody's even seen a mushroom cloud, but that's what they have in their heads, right? And if we had done it the other way around, you never would have heard of global warming. That's what's possible. And so it's time to course correct on this. And problems like this do take sometimes generations. A story is so powerful that it can take generations to recover. And that's what's happened. We've just lived through a couple generations that grew up with mushroom clouds in their heads. Fortunately, my daughter thinks Chernobyl is a TV show for old people. Yeah. And the next generation that's coming is going to build nuclear reactors and is going to save us. This is a stockpile in Kentucky, 700,000 metric tons of depleted uranium we've been saving, mostly left over from making bombs and a few reactors. We have 92 reactors in the U.S. That's not enough. But we have thousands and thousands of bombs. Think about that. So we can course correct. That's another way we could 10x global energy production in our lifetime. I think it's very important, I'll just say this, because if you think about what happens if you solve energy, what are all these people in the world fighting over? We're sort of pretending they're fighting over religions. No, they're fighting over access to resources, mostly energy. Yeah. So what happens if everybody gets enough energy? They can fight over dumb shit on Twitter like the rest of us, yeah, right? That's okay. So all this stuff I work on, I call it deep tech. To explain it to my mom, I had to come up with a name for the other stuff. You know what I'm talking about. You know, what did Uber invent? Like, what technology comes from Instagram? Now, these are not technology companies. We think we live in a world full of tech. We live in a world full of software. That's it. So for the last couple decades, the so-called geniuses in Silicon Valley, they're supposed to be making all this technology. They got busy making iPhone apps, right? And it's hurting us because that machinery of doing new things with new technologies got distracted, getting rich, selling ads, instead of developing real technologies. And this is the moment where that's turning course. And it's so exciting because we finally get to go. They just did all the easy shit, so they're running out of things to do. You know, they reinvented everything with web apps in the 2000s, and then they reinvented all the stuff again with mobile apps in 2010s, and now they're redoing it all with AI. But basically, they did all the easy stuff. So now it's time when we get to go and apply all the superpowers we got from our computers and from software, but go solve other problems. For fun, I just added up all the revenue of all the software companies in the world with a Sharpie on a napkin because it was poetic. And the truth is, you add them all up, this is their revenue, $2 trillion a year, which sounds staggering, and it is a lot of money. But global GDP, all the other things humans do, is $100 trillion a year. That's how much money all of the human activity adds up to. Silicon Valley is doing 2%. The other 98% remains untouched by the tech industry. The tech industry that's in the news every day, that's got the most valuable companies in the world, that's hiring all the smartest people, they're doing 2%. I don't think they're really doing their fair share. So maybe you guys know this because you see some ships going by now and then. They have 2 gas tanks in a cargo ship. One of them is burning gas like your car. It burns clean. You don't see this exhaust. Almost nobody's ever seen this smokestack on a ship. Why? Because when they get near the port, they burn the clean stuff. As soon as they get over the horizon, out of sight, they switch to burning this nasty bunker oil. It's like optimized for carbon emissions. It's the grossest stuff you can burn. It's super cheap. They just burn that stuff. And it's crazy to think about because the shipping industry alone is $2 trillion a year. But what if we made cargo ships that just sail themselves? You know, duct tape a Tesla to the front of it. It's easier than like driving a car. There's nothing to hit out there. No, well, like one documented pedestrian ever, right? Like we could do that. Sailing's been working for centuries. There's not even a lot of tech in this. $5 out of $6 spent on a cargo ship in its lifetime is literally burned as fuel. Why wouldn't we do that? We got guys working on that. When we build stuff out of cement, which is about, it's the most used material on Earth, cement. We build almost everything out of it. Not just our roads, but all these buildings, everything, this building too, made of cement. And it's loaded with steel reinforcement, rebar, because in 50 years, it's going to crumble. Everything we build crumbles in 50 years. Cement is just not strong enough. And that's kind of weird because of this thing. This is Pantheon in Rome. It's unreinforced concrete in a seismic zone, and it's been there for 2,000 years. And nobody knows how they did that. It's like the Romans built this thing and then got drunk at the after party and completely forgot how they made cement. Yeah. And for 2 millennia, nobody's been able to figure it out. But I found a guy, professor at MIT, who figured it out. He went to Italy, got a sample of this thing, put it in a microscope, figured out how they made that cement. So we now know how to make cement that lasts virtually forever, use less of it, use less steel, and here's the kicker. It's 20% less CO2. Now that matters because in cement, it's the most CO2 emitting material on Earth, right? And it's partly you're burning something to make the heat, to make the cement. That's part of it. But the other half of it is the chemical reaction itself that makes cement is emitting CO2. About probably 8 to 13% of global CO2 emissions is from making cement. So that's something easy to fix. We can do it in any cement factory. It's not more expensive. You just, in 10 years, hopefully we can upgrade all the cement in the world being made. That's an instant bonus for Americans and for the rest of the world. So we've been trying to recycle the cheapest crap on Earth our entire lives. Cardboard, plastic bottles. And it's not really working, okay? If you sort of add it up, you're going to spend more, you're going to burn more gas recycling plastic than if you just made fresh plastic. Again, we're 40, 50 years into this experiment. We all feel like we did our part. We're separating out bottles and cans at the curb. It's not working. And we're still pretending. It's like, it's recycling cosplay. That's it. I'm just pretending. Okay. it's also kind of weird because we haven't even started recycling the most expensive stuff on Earth. There's gold in electronics. All your phones, all your computers, your TVs, everything. About $20 billion a year of gold is going into these products. And then it ends up in a gold mine we call a landfill. Yeah. Well, we found these guys who figured out how to make a sort of modern chemistry process that can liquefy the gold and separate it from all the other crap. Just floats off. So now we can practically recover those metals and reuse them. They're also infinitely recyclable. Like plastic gets worse every time you recycle it. Gold doesn't. You can reuse it as many times as you want. Why wouldn't we do that? Start at that end. So I know I'm making fun of the software guys, but nobody loves software more than me. This is my best friend from childhood. I grew up in the cold, in the dark, in the basement in Alaska with that thing. So pretty much the opposite of growing up here. And I learned a lot about it because nobody for 1,000 miles in any direction knew more about computers than I did, so I had to kind of learn the hard way, just crash it and reboot it. And at the time, nobody, like I had the computer and I had a skateboard, and people were kind of conflicted about which was the bigger waste of time, okay? Computers were totally useless at the time. But Revenge of the Nerds, I was right. They got a little better, a little faster, a little more powerful, and now we use them everywhere. And we're still at the very beginning. We've been kind of computationally constrained for our whole lives. Always, I've wanted a faster computer, more power, more memory. And now we have it. And it's getting pretty staggering. We build these giant supercomputers. I build them because I think they're cool. You don't need it to. Anybody can rent them by the minute from Amazon, okay? Everybody can have access to giant supercomputers. But, if you have a lot of extra money, you can get a lot of blinking blue lights and show off to other nerds. But you don't have to do that. That's my job. Okay. So what we do is we use them to make simulations. So I don't know if anybody here ever played SimCity, but a video game where you simulate a city, and you get to run simulations on it. What happens if I put a traffic light here or put a Starbucks there, and you can see how your decisions play out over time. Well, that's a superpower. We're not doing that with real cities, right? Why not? In the simulation, you can run thousands of simulations and see how things are going to play out. You can see your possible futures, right? And this is how I want you to think about AI. People use the term AI, basically just means software. And now people think it means chatting. None of that matters. What AI is for is showing you this is what is possible with everything we know, because it can handle all the data about everything, every road, every person, every Starbucks. It can handle everything, and it can tell you these are your possible futures. Now, your job is to pick the one you want to go for. The AI can tell you how to do it. It cannot tell you what to do. That's our job. If you want to know about why you're a human, it's because your job is to figure out what's worth doing. AIs can tell you how to figure out how to do it, but they can't tell you what's worth doing. And so I'm going to give you some concrete examples. Years ago, we made simulations like this for the spread of disease. We got an early start on this stuff, so we started making computational models of how diseases spread. We'd load up the model with data on climate, rainfall, travel of humans, all the things that can affect infectious disease. And then we could run the simulations in the model. So this here is a model for malaria, and we were trying to solve a disease in Africa. This here is a model of Madagascar, which is an island off the coast of Africa. And if you do go to Madagascar, you probably should go to the middle. That's actually where the people still are. In the rainy season, malaria will cover almost the entire island. In the dry season, it'll go away almost completely. But in a simulation like this, we can test interventions. What happens if we deploy some bed nets here or spray some DDT there, or whatever we're going to do to be able to affect the spread of the disease? We can do that thousands of times in software before we do it in the real world. That's unprecedented, right? We used to only run one experiment in the real world. Maybe we guessed right. Who knows? We don't know. That's not good enough. Now we have these superpowers. Now the computers can help us to make better decisions. And if there's one thing humans seem to really suck at, especially in groups, it's making good decisions. So this is why the future of humanity is amazing. It's not science fiction. This is all real. For 15 years, we've been advising 75 different countries how to optimize their vaccination campaigns to contain diseases. In the first Ebola outbreak, 12,000 lives were lost. In the second Ebola outbreak, just a few years later, only 12 lives were lost. That's what would have been possible with COVID. We weren't trying. You feel me? The future of humanity is going to be making better decisions because we have tools to help with decision making. And that's going to be awesome. We have work to do to make all this happen. If you are making a hypersonic jet, designing a rocket, or making a Tesla these days, you design it in software, you test it in software, you crash it in software, and you do that over and over and over again until you know exactly what to build. And this is so important because the reason Silicon Valley won, the reason software is eating the world, is not because people in Silicon Valley are so smart. No, you can hire dumb shits to write iPhone apps in Silicon Valley. They don't have to be smart because they're just going to A/B test their way to success, right? You're all running different versions of Instagram right now. You don't know it, you don't feel it, they're just testing you. What if I make the button a little bigger? What if I move it over here? They just test until they figure out what works the best and iterate. And the cost of iteration in software is so low that it makes them very powerful. That's why they're taking over industries. You heard about disrupting industries. This is what we mean by disruption. This is why Silicon Valley wins. When we get a hold of a superpower, we take over the world, right? Look what happened. How many taxi companies could have made an iPhone app? None of them did, right? And I think it's very important to understand there was a moment in time back in the 80s, when we got cellular technology, largely from the U.S., not exclusively, but largely from the U.S., largely from the West Coast. And what happened is that technology got rolled out, and everywhere in the world I go to all over the world, every country I go to, in the big city, downtown, the tallest building, telecom. Every country got their own, usually 3, 4, 5 cellular companies, eventually rolled up into one big one. Every region in the world has their own major cell phone company. And that's kind of a form of economic success for these places, right? That's not happening anymore. In Silicon Valley, when we get a hold of a new superpower, we fund it to go global. What's the WhatsApp of South America? Yeah, it's WhatsApp. What's the Uber of Europe? No, it's Uber, right? We're not going to ever let that happen again. And so the disruption playbook has evolved, right? And so when you look at the day my first ship sails that doesn't need fuel, moves cargo across an ocean, what am I going to do? Sell it to Maersk or build the next Maersk, right? If there's one industry that's old and slow and boring, it's shipping. Those guys don't do tech. They don't even have iPhones yet. They're on pagers still, right? And they're not going to do it. We're going to do it. And a version of that is going to be true in more and more industries. And so I think I'm trying to give you a sense of what to look for, right? Because you can see this happening around you. In Silicon Valley, we have this religion. It's called Scratch and Itch. And Scratch and Itch basically means, find some problem you have. Your friends probably have the same problem, It's like budget market research, right? Yeah. But it also is kind of why kids in Silicon Valley are busy making iPhone apps to have weed delivered to their dorm room by a drone, right? They're just running out of problems. They don't have any actual problems, existential problems. Their problems are like, iPhone battery doesn't last all day, relationship problems, no real problems. So I think it's fine. It's sorry, very distracting. I know. Did you hear anything I said? It's fine because it's like practice, it's like build an iPhone app, ship it, get some customers, learn to, support them and make money. All that's fine, but think of it as practice. Like that's practice. iPhone apps are practice. Once you do that, then take on a problem that's hard, that matters, that 1 billion people have, a problem you don't have. That's harder. That's where all the action is, right? If you have an iPhone in your pocket, the cost of that thing is equivalent to the global median income. I'm not trying to make you feel bad, okay? I got piles of these things just laying around, right? We're all guilty in that sense. But what I think it means is the world has just kind of overinvested in us, right? More money's been spent on us, more education, more jet fuel, at least for me, right? So hopefully we can do something commensurate with that investment in us. Let's give back by working on something that actually matters. Here's an example. This guy is hauling $25,000, maybe more, of vaccines out into rural, looks like India or something. And what's going to happen is we're going to start injecting kids to vaccinate them against these infectious diseases. And this actually works. This is why you and I exist, honestly, is that this worked. I mean, despite what everybody thinks about vaccines, there are some good ones that really worked. And that's how come we got here. That chart I showed at the beginning, population growth, a lot of it is because of vaccines. So I'm not defending the new vaccines, but don't run me out of town. Okay, look. Point is, that's what's going on. About 20 to 50% of these vaccines are going to fail. And the reason is we did all the work to invent the vaccine, to test the vaccine, to manufacture the vaccine, to get it on a ship, to go to Africa or India, to get on the bike and out into the bush, to inject the kid. We did all that work, and it still fails because it didn't stay cold. Now, you and I don't have that problem. We have refrigerators, and we have power for the refrigerators. The power's out 4 to 16 hours a day in some of these places in the developing world, right? So the vaccination fails because they go bad when they're not kept cold. And hundreds of thousands of kids die of something they were vaccinated against. This is kind of unforgivable. So we invented this thing. It's a kind of a super thermos. You put vaccines in there, stick it in the sunshine, in the Sahara, no external power. It doesn't have a power cord. You come back a couple months later, and your vaccines will still be cold. This is literally the deployment scenario. You strap this R2-D2 looking thing to a camel and walk for days out into rural Ethiopia or something, set up a clinic, which is literally like a tree with a doctor under it, injecting kids. That's the front lines of vaccination. That's real. And look, what I think it means, the world kind of overinvested in us. We have a lab full of PhDs who can, in biology and chemistry and physics, we can invent these things, but we had to go there and sit with these folks and understand the problem, right? And understand the problem and bring it back to our fancy lab. And then we can come up with an invention for almost anything, That's because the world spent a lot on us. I don't know if the same is true for that guy, So for all of human history, we've had this kind of innovation methodology called biological evolution. And the way that works is through successive generations of sex and gamma rays, you get a lot of variations and mutations, and then you sort of kill off the ones that don't work so well, and the best ones survive. I don't know what happened here. Oh, what happened? Come on, guys. Yeah. So you had to kind of die to innovate, right? You had to sort of go through this survival of the fittest process. It was also very like nasty and mean and a lot of people dying, whatever. Anyway, now humans became the apex predator, right? We evolved to the point where nothing's coming after us except for these, occasional diseases. Not so bad. Now we have to use our brains to evolve. We don't know if it's going to work. Can we figure out how to go and make ourselves better, our species better, our communities better, society? Like, can we do that? We're trying, and like in some ways we're doing it, but in other ways it's hard to see the progress, right? At some point you got to ask yourself, do we need all these extra humans? I'm not going to tell you which humans are extra. Hopefully you don't want that job. Like whoever thinks they want that job, they should be the first to go. Okay. I think it's the most beautiful and amazing thing humans have ever done. We chose the sanctity of human life. And by and large, we chose to let everybody live regardless of their fitness, right? I think it's the right thing to do. Make no mistake. But it doesn't come without a cost. We chose to let those people live, all of them, us, but we have to provide for them. We have to take care of them. And it's being dishonest with ourselves not to do that. So we had this kind of, success. And, we ended up, I think, having to work for most of, up until, say, maybe the Industrial Revolution. Everybody just had to work all the time to keep us all going. And then something happened. We invented the internal combustion engine. We got a little more efficient, and we created something totally magical and new called free time. Yeah. And we were very industrious. We put it to good use. We created the entertainment industry, books, movies, music, elections, video games, all the things we do to fill our free time, right? And at some point, I think we kind of hit peak entertainment. Right? Like at some point, you've watched Netflix season 14 twice. Do we need you to do more of that? And there's something important happening now, which is that a robot is coming to give you a whole bunch more free time, right? It's going to be able to do a bunch of the boring, dangerous, menial, repetitive things that you don't actually want to do, right? Now, a lot of that's happening already, but the rest of it is going to happen. We're going to give you a bunch more free time. And I think, it's okay. Watch Game of Thrones, Love Island. What do we got here? what kind of fans we got here? But then after you've done all that, hopefully you have a little bit of time left. Let's talk about what to do with that. So this is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So this is a way to think about what do humans need to feel happiness, to feel fulfilled. And start at the bottom. And I like to think about what is technology helping with, right? And if you start here, food, lots of tech involved in feeding people, warmth, heaters, sex, we have condoms and vibrators, sleep, we have lots of tech helping. Keep going. Employment, health, we have lots of technology and medicine helping. These things are fundamental. I call them like quantity of life problems, right? These are problems that we can actually affect with technology pretty readily. But if you keep going, the nature of what humans need changes. So friendship, family, there's no app for that, right? Sexual intimacy, if you're using technology for that, you're probably doing it wrong. So just, self-esteem, confidence, achievement. This is not stuff technology is addressing. Maslow's highest level called self-actualization, what humans need to feel happiness, meaning in life, creativity, problem solving. I don't get that from computers, and I'm really into it, right? So living up to your potential. This top half of the pyramid, I call it quality of life. Right? These are things that we need for humans, and a robot's not going to provide any of that for you, right? These are the happiest people I know. These are orphans in Ethiopia. This is their classroom. They've never heard of overcrowding. This is normal to them, right? Look at this kid. You know anybody happier than him? I don't. I have everything. I'm a platinum member on Delta Airlines or whatever. Like, I'm everything. I got everything that you could imagine needing to be happy, right? Except a motorcycle. I should probably get a motorcycle. But he doesn't have a motorcycle, and he's doing fine. So what's going on? Don't pity these kids, right? They got something we don't have, right? He knows exactly who needs him in the morning when he wakes up, right? Do we have that? I think a lot of our modern societies are suffering. I actually have been having a great time on this island, and I think you guys are probably doing better than most of Americans' coastal cities. But, it's still a concern. Robots can really only do what we teach them how to do. And right now, we are terrible role models for robots. My daughter, this is my daughter. She's actually adopted from that orphanage in Ethiopia that I showed you. And I picked her up and drug her back to America and immediately started raising her with a bunch of American problems, right? One of which is we have a robot in our kitchen called Alexa. Yeah, you guys know Alexa? Yeah. And I noticed the way she talks to Alexa, she's kind of bossy. She's like, Alexa, tell me a joke. And I realized, she talks to Alexa the way I talk to her. And I said, these robots, there's going to be a lot more of them coming, and they have really long memories. You might want to be a little nicer to Alexa, just in case. And she actually liked that idea, so she started being quite polite. And so she'd say, Alexa, please tell me a joke. And it's actually quite charming to see. And even now, she's 18 now, and she still does that. She's a lot nicer than me, and people like her more than me. And, I only really have to hang out for a couple more years while she gets into college. So anyway, we did not get this instruction manual. Every one of us is this kind of one-of-one experiment. And I think what it means is, we have all this automation coming. We have AI. We have all these robots. We think we're going to put everybody out of a job. But the truth is, we haven't done the work we need to even imagine doing that. If a robot takes your job, please rejoice. Let them have it. And then help us write that manual. Help us figure out, how do you take care of humans? How do you solve for the psychological well-being of a human? How do you take care of them? I was talking to our president. She was a nurse. America's short about 100,000 nurses right now. I don't even know what the rest of the world could use. Right? 100,000 nurses. Robots aren't going to do that job. Right? Who's going to take care of your parents? My mom's getting old, trying to die of cancer right now. I'm not exactly busy taking care of her, right? Might be nice if I was, but I got other things going, right? I'd go visit her. She's doing fine, but she'd probably love it if there was more of a more human connection, right? No robot's going to take care of her. Actually, there are people who's around taking care of her, and I'm really thankful for them. But that's what it takes, right? We need teachers. We need those nurses. We need all those things. There's a lot of work for humans to do. And I think we haven't really been honest with ourselves. We complain about things like, my daughter, for example, in school, went to public school in the U.S., God's gift to public school, amazing public school. But 30 kids, one teacher, we'd complain, maybe get a budget allocation and get it to like 27 to 1, big deal, right? Every parent is pissed off about student-teacher ratio for decades, and that hasn't improved at all. But what would happen if we could get that like 1 to 1, right? I would trade any of her teachers, all of whom have been good, for like, I don't know, a displaced truck driver who lost his job to a robot. You don't actually need to be a very good teacher if you only have one student, right? Like you could just pay attention to the one person and like try and help them get a little further along. I mean, that would be better than what's happening in our class right now. You're in the classrooms. It's like you got a couple of kids who are too smart. Like put them in the back and tell them to do math. And you got a couple of kids who are, going crazy and trying to break shit. Like, okay, that's our common denominator. Let's teach to them and keep them busy. That's what's going on. So we're not setting our teachers up for success. So I just think at some point we got to take responsibility and recognize, like, what do we actually care about? We say we care about education. We say we care about our kids. Why don't we have 30 times as many teachers? I don't know anybody who's trying to get their teenager to become a truck driver, right? We have also, side note, over 50,000 open truck driver positions in the U.S., almost as many as nurses, right? And they pay really well. Nobody wants that job, right? So again, let a robot have your job, rejoice, and then help us figure out how we do the important stuff. Every one of these tools, robot is a tool, AI is a tool. These are all tools for humans to exact our values into the world. That's what they are, right? A hammer is a tool. I can smash your head or build you a home. And it's a tool we have had a long relationship with, so we've mostly gotten pretty good about it. There's a lot more home building than head smashing going on. So, again, be thankful. That's evidence humans actually can improve over time. Right? We don't smash heads as much, and we build a lot of homes. That's great. So we have to get, over time, we have to get a better and better relationship with the tools. And the new tools scare us. So AI is scaring people right now because we're still in like preschool with that. Our relationship is not very mature. And there will be, problems along the way. It'll go a little crazy. We'll do something stupid, whatever, and then we'll fix it and move on. And humans in the long run really miraculously do a really good job. And we do get better. And we are better than our ancestors were in a lot of ways, Still a lot of room for improvement, but that's what's happening. So I hope that you'll join me and, maybe tamp down the evening news, stop reading about whatever is going on in the White House, stop watching dystopian movies about how robots are going to kill us all, and, imagine for a moment, like, what future we could build with these kinds of tools. So I'm going to stop there. Hopefully I talked fast enough that we have some time I'll hang out as long as you guys want to answer some questions. And if you haven't had enough, there's a podcast also called Deep Future, which is mostly just me having long conversations with nerds, trying to pick their brains and learn stuff. And if you want to learn more stuff about science and tech, it's an easy way to learn the way I do. And then I wrote a book about this stuff, which is coming out in July. And I hope and it's actually really fun. You don't need like a PhD to read it. Even my mom likes it. So, yeah. Anyway, all right. Anyway, thanks a ton for listening. And hopefully we can, I don't know if they're going to run me off stage, but I'll stay and hopefully can take some questions. And we have a microphone, too. Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you teaching your daughter about Roku's Basilisk. I have two. I'll let you answer one. The first is Nick Bostrom in Superintelligence Path Danger Strategies talks about the orthogonality between ethics and what AI would do, say, making a paperclip factory, as you're familiar with, I'm sure. I was interested in your thoughts on that aspect of AI as disruption.
Yeah.
And the second one would be related to quantum mechanics and how most of our online cybersecurity is based off NP complete problems, and how the disruption with quantum computers. Yeah. So choose one of those. I don't want to.
Why don't we take the quantum computing thing offline because it's a load of crap, and then and I'll talk about Nick Bostrom. So what he's referring to is a book called Superintelligence, and there's been a lot of other folks who've piled on since, where they speculate that if AI continues on this track of getting better and better and better, and faster and faster and faster, and smarter and smarter and smarter, that it's ultimately going to become evil and destroy us all. And I think it's kind of like saying, like, if cars get faster and faster and faster, and they do every year, you'll be able to, like, drive to Miami from here. Like, it's not really how it works. And I think these people are being very disingenuous about it. They're fear-mongering. They're extrapolating, because human brains are really good at paying attention to scary stuff. And you can kind of see why. Like, your brain needs to be focused on, like, don't forget, tigers can kill you, so be cool and don't piss off the tigers. That's a very important thing to learn from a story, because you don't have time to learn that the hard way, right? You only get one chance. So brains are optimized for scary stories. Whereas, a story about, like, I had these delightful berries I picked somewhere. It's like, okay, that might be useful, but it's not critical for you to remember. And so your brain cycles on the scary stories. And I think it's nearly fucking criminal, I'm so sorry, to take every new technology and turn it into a scary story about how everything goes horribly wrong. We've been doing that for centuries, millennia probably, and every time those naysayers were wrong, right? We have a maturation cycle. There is a kind of developmental process you've got to go through to learn to wield the new tools, but humans do over time figure out how to do that. And you can see that with the hammer. You can see it with nuclear weapons. Like, we've sort of figured out how to handle them. And I think it's very important to understand that all of these things are new tools. So the problem with AI is, we're ripe for these stories right now because it's scary, because it's new and it's moving fast and it's improving really quickly. And, but look, a calculator has been better at math than me for my whole life, right? And now a computer is better at writing novels. I wrote every word of that book, but it's probably the last book anybody will ever bother to write without using AI. Because it's very helpful. It'll help you express what you wanted to express. Like, it's getting really good at these things. And like, look, there are people in the world who think they can dance better than me. A lot of them. Some of them I think can dance better than me. I'm still dancing, right? So I don't think there's this moment where you are obsoleted in any sense by an AI. I also think there's some esoteric technical reasons why these guys are full of shit. And I think it's irresponsible to be taking these stories and running with them. And Superintelligence is from almost 10 years ago now, I think, right? 2012? So yeah, 13-year-old book. And we've had a number of other people pile on since then with new framings for how it's all going to hell in a handbasket and how AGI is going to kill us all. And none of them have been right? The death count for AI is still right around 0, last I checked, right? So, I'm sorry, I'm a little wound up about this because I think it's gone a little too far. And so, again, boycott dystopia, join the other team. The optimists always win in the long run. So, yeah. I'll try to be more terse. I know I'm very long-winded. Yeah, we have one over here.
Thank you so much for this presentation. I'm a bit of a science fiction buff myself, but my question actually has to do with Ray Kurzweil's singularity and deep future.
Yeah.
What is the correlation between both industries, specifically from the human aspect? How do you mesh what you're working on with the work of Ray? Yeah,
I mean, look, Ray's an amazing guy, wonderful inventor, has given a lot. And I think, for a lot of people, it has been helpful to have this framing of the exponential growth of computation. And I am a computational maximalist. Like, I think the more computation, the better. The more computation we have, the cheaper it is, the more computers can help us. The problem, it's very much like Nick Bostrom. What Ray is doing, I think, is a logical fallacy. He's saying that, again, at this point, computers are so fast they become smarter than humans and you're obsoleted. I don't think it makes actual sense, because these are two different things. We actually know that, we don't know how your brain works, but we know that the computer does not work like your brain. For example, an LLM, which can now sort of speak English, takes something like 5 or 6 orders of magnitude more energy than your brain to speak English. Like, whatever it's doing, which we don't really understand that well, it's not doing it the way we know there's a better way. Your brain is the better way, right? We know that your brain is not it's not a binary computer. It's not a digital computer. It's something else. And it's awesome and amazing. And we may be able to emulate it. We may be able to get closer and closer and do more of the things that a brain can do, but it is not the same thing what a computer is. And I think it's, again, I think it's a little disingenuous to sort of claim that it is. So again, love Ray. He's contributed a lot, but I argue with him about this aspect of it. And I think that, our idea of what technology means needs to be updated. It does not mean just software. It doesn't mean just computers. It means new materials, new areas in science, new advancements, new ways of making energy, new ways of sailing, all those things. And computers are going to help us do it all. But technology means applying the latest knowledge that humans have and to solve actual problems. And that's the part I think Silicon Valley lost track of. They just lost their way. It became very soulless. It's not solving actual problems, it's solving made-up problems. And to me, that's not what we're in this for. So I think that's why I'm excited, because I do feel, and this is true in Silicon Valley, it's true in the tech industry, it's true in the venture capital industry, we're course-correcting now, partly just because we want those bigger opportunities. Like, well, why, if $2 trillion is there in the shipping industry, why wouldn't we go after that? Even if you're just greedy entrepreneurs, it's like, well, I'm going after the shipping's $2 trillion, durable goods is probably $4 trillion, energy, $15 trillion a year. Why wouldn't we go after those markets? And so every one of those, I think, is an opportunity. And going back to what Woodley said before, if you have a 10x multiplier, I don't do anything that's like 2% better or 10% better. I kick in when it's 10x better. Imagine if you could do anything 10x better, why wouldn't you? And so those opportunities are there. So anyway, again, sorry for being long-winded, but hopefully that gives you a sense. Yeah.
I just wanted to say that your lecture today resounds very strongly with the meat or the core of the issues that we have in the Virgin Islands.
Okay.
The reason why I say that is that we have a lot of opportunity to really develop and produce solutions to a lot of the problems here, but we're so focused on emulating what we see going on in the continental United States, when we have a plethora of resources that a lot of other places in the country don't have access to, like we do in the Caribbean. Like you mentioned, sunlight. The whole situation you mentioned with not Madagascar, but with the country.
Sure.
It was Germany. Germany, how they had issues with sunlight,
Yeah.
and letting solar power work during the wintertime, where we literally don't experience wintertime here in the Caribbean.
Right.
It's sunlight 365 days a year.
Amazing, yeah.
So why haven't we not monopolized on that type of technology to
Right.
help solve our energy crisis that we have here in the Virgin Islands? We're looking for ways to develop the economy and here in the territory, but then we keep looking towards tourism,
Yeah.
when we have land that is rich with soil where we could develop agriculture, especially when we're now in a time where food and it's very scarce.
Yep.
Many countries are now, even if you're looking at the geopolitical issues that we're having right now, whether or not you want to admit it, a lot of the geopolitical conflicts that we have experiencing right now in the United States is a fight for resources.
Yep.
The fight for Greenland right now is about
Sure.
uranium.
Yeah.
And we're hearing more countries trying to find ways to be self-sustaining, but we have resources here where we could self-sustain ourselves
Cool.
as a small territory.
Yeah.
So I do hope I wish that there were more political figures that was hearing this lecture so that they could start thinking outside the box and stop.
Well, you could be the political figures. You know, I mean, there is one thing we got figured out, which is, yeah.
So I'm just glad that we got to hear your lecture and to start making decisions that really makes life here in the Virgin Islands better on a whole, and not just thinking of ways to be or emulating the United States. So I also have a question.
Yeah.
I work in the field of intelligence analysis. I'm an intelligence analyst. And there's always
How am I doing?
You're doing very well. You're doing good.
So we'll talk afterwards.
And there's always the talk about AI and how it's scary, and look what's happening with China and how they're using AI to spy and it's like sort of taking over their lives and da-da-da. And then we're thinking that could never happen in the United States, whereas it's actually happened. It's just that China chooses not to lie to their people about it. They're telling the truth.
Yeah.
But do you think that we can get to that point where we start to think about technology to improve our livelihood here on the planet Earth? Or do you think we're moving further and further away from that possibility? And what do you think it will take for us to get to that invention of technology to improve human life?
Yeah, thanks. I mean, look, I think what I'm trying to convince you of is that there are a lot of these opportunities here. For almost anything humans do, I can show you some technology that could do it better. Now, when we're talking about acceleration of innovation, what that means is more of those opportunities exist. There's a lot of work to do to bring them to life, right? Now, going back to what you said about the islands, proximity to problems is a natural resource. That's something you have that's special. You can see what are people struggling with, what do we need. It's right in front of you. Nobody in San Francisco has that. They have everything delivered. It's like, I feel like laser tag, boom, delivery, right? Everything is delivered in hours. And so they don't get to see and understand and feel what's happening around them in a meaningful way. And this is maybe less true here than in some of the other islands even, and especially once you get to like South America or whatever, they got real good proximity to real big problems, right? But there's a start here, and then you have a interesting position where you can maybe bridge some of that. Problems you have here, going back to scratch and itch, probably are shared by a lot of other island nations, maybe other other nations that are sort of further removed from what we call mainland U.S. Right? We have different class. Our problems are like between people and groups of people and dumb shits arguing with other dumb shits. You know, that's our problems. But we don't have like the problems that you're describing here, right? And you know, as far as like diversifying, out of everybody I talk to here, I try to ask them about what's happening, and of course, it's all tourism. But this university is not tourism. It's amazing. What are you training everybody here to do? More tourism? No. We're training people to do important stuff. I mean, not that tourism isn't important, but you know, you have the seeds, you have a lot of the resources to go and steer into other opportunities. And it's very exciting to see. And I think you have amazing leadership. I mean, this is a pretty impressive operation. Even this innovation hub that we're in, and the other island, it sounds even more exciting. Like, you have a lot going. So I would just take it and run with it. You know, pick one thing. You don't have to do them all. Pick one. Pick one thing. If everybody here picks one thing, like, there's a lot of cool things that can be done. So, yeah.
Hey, how you doing? So you brought up an interesting fact with nuclear power. We have more nuclear bombs than nuclear reactors, and you said we missed the mark. At some point, do we look at AI as well and think that will we miss the mark with AI as far as weaponization, or will we use it for the betterment of the world? And what Silicon Valley is thinking behind that whole metric?
You know, computers are the most democratized technology. In that sense, I was talking about this last night a little bit. When you look at what happens with a new technology, a lot of times, rich people get a hold of it first. We have to use them to kind of subsidize it, right? So that happened with, computers in general and with iPhones and all that stuff. But it's just a moment of the life cycle where we need to do that to, get economies of scale, get the cost down. And, you guys should all drive a Tesla, have an iPhone. I'm not complaining. We need to waste a lot of money on these cool new gadgets so that we can then get that cost down and figure out which things are good and take them to the rest of the world. So AI is interesting in the sense that, as we know it right now, it's very computationally intensive to train these models. So only the richest companies in the world are able to go and do that. And in some cases, you could say maybe a nation state. We don't really see that yet. We don't have nation states training their own models. We have big companies training models and trying to sell them to nation states. But if you spend that much making a product to make money off it, you need the most customers you can get. So if you look at the folks who are building AIs right now, they need every single person on earth to be a customer. So right now, I might have access to better AIs than you guys by like a month, right? Does Elon Musk have a better AI than me? I don't know, maybe his is a month better than mine, right? I'm going to have whatever he has today in a month. You're going to have whatever I have in a month. Everyone on earth is going to get access to it a month after that. That's how tight that window is, right? So the fundamental technology, and you can see it's getting, open sourced and getting better. It's going everywhere. Like, there's hardly even, they call it an AI arms race, but it's basically over. Like, we all get it. The truth is, OpenAI is not a bunch of geniuses. They're just the ones who got a hold of enough computation to build it first, right? Everybody else is catching up to them. So what do we need OpenAI for? Everybody's catching up to them. The cat's out of the bag. They don't have a bunch of breakthroughs that make them so much better than than Google, or much less the Chinese folks. They don't have a bunch of breakthroughs. The breakthrough was transformers. The breakthrough was deep learning. We've had that for years. Everybody has the same breakthrough. We all have the same toolkit for AI. So basically, we're all going to get it, is my point. I think that's actually something to take heart in and be encouraged by. Now, to be intellectually honest, I'll admit, yes, there will be assholes who get a hold of AI and use it to do horrible things. And, that's normal. It happens all the time. In the same way that you're pissed off at Facebook or pissed off at one of these other companies for being bad actors. That's going to happen. We have to go through that cycle. But everybody has the technology, and it's our AIs versus their AIs, and nobody's got something magically better. So I think it's a fair fight. Yeah. Hopefully that makes sense.
Hey, Pablo, thank you so much. I just want to tell you how much I appreciate learning so much from you this evening. But what stood out to me most were those slides of the people, your manual, the human manual. And the reason why it stood out with me is because I've worked here in the Virgin Islands for quite a bit of time, and I'm always concerned about where people live, where they learn, and where they labor.
Yeah.
And I've always told the people who worked in teams with me in customer experience when I was there, it doesn't come from a manual. It comes from your heart.
Yeah.
And I feel the same way about ethical leadership and for the common good. And I looked at your slides, and I was especially impressed with the one with the gentleman and the camel trying to take the medicine.
Yeah.
And I heard you say something that I think we're missing here in the Virgin Islands and probably in the Caribbean diaspora, if not around the world. So we're not including the voices from the margin. We're not going out there and hearing what those who may not fit into our schema may believe on a regular day. And so I want to thank you for highlighting that point, because I think we as human beings are becoming so robotic with our feelings and how we do things and how we serve others and how we make our decisions that we are forgetting that at the end of the day we're touching humanity. Yeah. And I just want to thank you for highlighting that in your presentation today. Thank you.
Well, yeah, thanks. Look, I mean, I'm on Team Human. Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's what we're here for. And I think, we are the most beautiful, forget AI, like we are a million times more complex and amazing and evolved than AI, right? And, again, these are, and now we have evolved with the toolkit that can make us better, and we just have to use it for that, And I think it's about, like, imagine a world where, maybe a robot does all this stuff and we don't have to work, but we could spend our lives doing the things that are enriching to us and to our communities, and I would love that, but we'll probably figure all that out right about the same time I die. So you guys, none of us are going to be that lucky, All the life extension stuff is coming right after you die. So no, I'm just kidding.
We're going to take one more question, and then
cool.
Pablos is going to kind of hang around. So if you have other questions, please stay back.
Yes, Mr. Holman, thank you so much for this most uplifting and enlightening presentation. Two little quick questions. One is pushing and some themes that other questioners brought up is about like the ecosystem of innovation. From your experience, your lived experience of whether how does like a small community like us create an ecosystem of inventors, technologists, get the finance needed, get the government support needed in order to solve the bottom of pyramid problems we have? Because from my perspective, it seems that, you mentioned, is that high tech is driven by big companies, and they're trying to go after problems that, or solve problems or market solutions that make a lot of money. So like solving the energy problem of the Virgin Islands is not a big money proposition. Sorry.
Is that you or me? Okay.
The second one is that I'm very much interested in financial inclusion. And one of the disruptive technologies that that everyone has talked about in like inclusive finance is the use of blockchain to really open up financial markets. It's one topic you was listed on the slide, but you didn't talk much about it. Could you give a few words as to like where you see blockchain technology going, immediate applications, transformative applications in that area? Thank you.
Let me take that one first. So, right now people are wound up about whether governments will control crypto. But in the long run, crypto will control governments. And the reason I say that is because fundamentally what a blockchain is a better way for humans to organize ourselves. And every time we get a new technology like that, at first we were poorly behaved. Like whoever invented the wheel was probably assassinated. And then for like a century, we kill off all those wheel people. And then eventually it's like, screw you, Dad, wheels are cool. And, we course correct. That's kind of what I tried to describe with nuclear reactors. It's with blockchain, we have a very entrenched set of constituents, you could say, in all these governments that have been issuing currencies, every one of which has been a bad actor. Every currency ever issued by humans has been diluted by whoever controlled the mint. Whoever has the mint invites their frat buddies over and, inflates the currency. So that's why decentralizing it was very important. So I think there's a big difference between the legacy systems we used, and money is a way for humans to organize ourselves. How do we transact? How do we efficiently move value around? Well, that's what money's for. That's what the transaction systems are for. All the ones we built before Bitcoin were expensive, loaded with fraud. They were abused by whoever issued the currencies. All those things are true. And so by decentralizing it, creating something truly egalitarian, Bitcoin was able to solve that. Now, Bitcoin isn't the end. It's like a stake in the ground. We can build a lot beyond that now because we've proven that decentralization works. We've proven that even though every government on earth hates it, they can't kill it. And so I think there's a bright future for humans to adopt this technology to do a lot of other things. The goal is not just, we had to do cryptocurrency first because in order to decentralize anything else, you need a way to pay people to contribute resources to the network. That's part of what the Bitcoin protocol does with mining and all that. The goal is to decentralize AWS. The goal is to decentralize everything and get away from relying on any central service because that becomes a point of attack. A lot of times they're attacked by being taken over by governments or by companies and things like that. And you can kind of see that's what happened with things like social media. And so we want to be in a world where it's a level playing field. Nobody gets an asymmetric advantage on the network. I don't control what you do. You can't control what I do. And it's freedom that's real. And as more of our lives go online, it's more and more important for the internet to be free. So that's kind of where that goes. At any given moment along the way, there's a kind of weather report about, what the legal jurisdictions are, what the business situation is, what our opportunities are, how much regulation there is in finance, where the rails are, where you can connect up. All that, you have to be deep in the game to sort of navigate that. People are succeeding in different ways. We could talk more offline. And then the last thing, the other question that you brought up, and I'll try to be brief. I see, when I go all around the world, I've seen a lot of places where it's like the Silicon Valley of Europe or the Silicon Valley of Latin America. And all of that to date has been bullshit. And the reason is it's very difficult to replicate the culture. For everything that's wrong with Silicon Valley, there is something that's working. And what's working is if you're in San Francisco, you're surrounded by people who will give you the benefit of the doubt no matter how crazy your idea is. So I can show up and be like, hey, let's make self-sailing cargo ships. And every single person, a barista will be like, my college roommate knows this guy who might be able to help get you money for that. That's what happens. Anywhere else in the world, let's make self-sailing cargo ships. And people are like, Pablos, good luck. That sounds crazy. I'm going to go now. That's kind of the difference. And I've seen in Italy, if you have a startup and it fails, they open a criminal investigation. When I have a startup and it fails, my investors are calling me the next day. not to get their money back, to find out what I'm doing next. It's just a different culture around risk. And I think it's very difficult to expect that to spontaneously develop in other places. What I think is much more important is to be honest with yourselves. What are our strengths? Germany has amazing engineers. They're not so good at policy around energy, okay? Great at engineering, even nuclear reactors and cars and planes. They've done all kinds of amazing stuff. Let's have them do engineering, right? China is really good at manufacturing. Let's have them do manufacturing, right? They're not so good at innovation. Good at stealing innovation. We love that. Impressive, very impressive at stealing innovation and manufacturing it like crazy. That's cool. Let's have them do manufacturing. America, we're good at marketing. Okay? Yeah, we took the marketing badge. I don't know why we chose marketing, but we're really good at that. So we're doing marketing. But you kind of want to play to your strengths. And I think that you can evolve a community, a society over time. If you do want to do things that are new, you need to make us small. Doesn't have to be the whole country. Doesn't have to be the whole island. It's just got to be the people who fit in this building are enough. There's enough of us here in this building that we can all get on the same page about we're going to do these new things. We're going to support each other no matter what. We're going to help share the resources that we find. We're going to make connections for each other. There's enough people in this building you could do that, right? It doesn't have to be the whole country. And I think that that's a way of getting something going if you want to do something new. Lots of startups in the world that do have technologies need a partner. They need a customer. They need somebody to develop the technology with. You could be that. This is a jurisdiction that kind of has its own autonomy in a way. You could do things here that we can't do in the mainland. Figure out where those cracks are. Those are your strengths. I think that's a way of thinking about it too. So anyway, look, I've been very long-winded. You've been all very patient. We got to let you get back to your. I heard there's a Friday night party downtown, so get going. And but thank you. Yeah.
Let's show Pablos Holman our appreciation. Thank you so very much. As promised, the third annual Innovation and Business Leadership Lecture has been inspiring. Thank you once again, Mr. Holman. Come on back next year, same time, same place. We're going to do this again, and we promise it's going to be just as inspiring. So once again, thank you, Mr. Holman. He'll stick around if you have other questions. Thank you, and have a good night.